This is the first day of this April 1981 7-day sesshin. And we will comment on the 3 refuges. At first, as we recite them, and also then read and comment on what the 6th patriarch, Wei Nang, has said about it. Before starting, a few words about listening to Teisho. First of all, to take a comfortable position, as comfortable as you can. Get benches if you need, and extra cushions. And also to be fresh for Teisho. It used to be that there was no break, hardly a break before Teisho. We rushed right from the work into Teisho. There was still casserole on the fingers at the time. Now there's a half an hour rest period. Doesn't mean you have to take it, but if you're tired, to take it so that one isn't taking one's rest during Teisho. It has been said that a sesshin is a 3-legged stool. The 3 legs being Zazen, Doksan, and Teisho. Cut one leg short, stool wobbles. Cut one off, well, there's no stool. If you need to change your posture, can you do so in utter silence? Move, as we talked about yesterday, moving a doorknob, moving the legs. With nothing extra. The moving that is natural is no disturbance. The extra is the inattention, which is the me. Either someplace else in thought, or wanting to hear oneself, to make sure one still is there. One still is somewhat important. And in listening, can there be just total listening? No resistance. Open. Not dwelling on agreeing or disagreeing or comparing. But looking into oneself. This is work. Listening to Teisho is work. It's work for the teacher. It's work for all of you, or is it? Can one work together on this, to see into oneself? Get a glimpse of what these words are pointing at in oneself. I take my refuge in Buddha and resolve that with all beings I will understand the great way whereby the Buddha seed may forever thrive. Three refuges. What is a refuge? Is it trying to get from an unsafe place to a safe place? To a protected place? Guarded? Guarded from what? Safe from what? People, human beings, have always built refuges of some kind or other. And today some of those are still standing, the people are not. They're dead. What's a refuge? What is one taking refuge in? Refuge from? One's pains and fears, anxieties, the uncertainty of this life, the certainty of death. And who or what is providing the refuge? There are wildlife refuges in many parts of the world, places where animals can still roam at large and be themselves, follow their own way, and yet they are poachers too. Last year I saw an incredibly moving movie of a herd of elephants leaving their refuge because of the poachers that are after the tusks, the ivory. So this band of elephants left in a giant, very ponderous, can't call it a stampede in a way, and yet there's a lot of destruction in their path. And villagers in Africa complained, all this destruction right through a schoolhouse, right through a field, right through a forest, eating, trampling down. These elephants were looking for a new refuge. Nobody wanted them. So, a method was tried to use helicopters zooming over them to chase them back to their original refuge. A very nerve-wracking thing to have these helicopters buzz over your head, whether a human being or an elephant. But they did turn around. Up to a point. Up to a highway, which was the borderline, which was recognized. And there they stood. They wouldn't move. Wouldn't go back to where they had come from. They wouldn't budge. You had the feeling they were rather facing death, being shot, which was the threat. And to go back into this refuge, which was no refuge. Take my refuge in Buddha. What is Buddha? Who is Buddha? We're taking our refuge in Shakyamuni Buddha, who lived 500 and something BC. And what kind of refuge? The other day somebody from the Tibetan tradition was saying here, oh, there are Buddhas and Bodhisattvas all over protecting us. Instinctively, like mothers protect their children instinctively. So these Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are hovering all over us, protecting us. Are they? Protecting us from what? From pain? From sorrow? Which we have created ourselves? Or are we creating these Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in our hope for protection from ourselves, ignorant of our own ways of sorrow, and destructiveness and violence. Shakyamuni Buddha, when he died, implored by his disciples for some last words, what to do after he's dead, who to follow, who's going to be the successor. He said, "Be ye lamps unto yourselves. Rely on yourselves and not on external help. Hold fast to the truth as a lamp. Seek refuge alone in truth. Look not for assistance from anyone beside yourselves." That's not a very comforting statement if one is looking for comfort, for certainty, for security. When the woman with her dead son sought out the Buddha, she had been told there's a wise sage someplace giving talks in a park. Maybe he can bring your son back to life. This woman was totally stricken with grief. She was carrying her son around. She didn't even bury him. She didn't want to part even with his dead body. Buddha did not revive the son, but he asked her to bring him a mustard seed from any house in which death had not occurred. And after going around, talking to the people, to everyone in the village, she came back, she buried her son. She started looking into herself for the meaning of living and the meaning of dying. Of course, the word Buddha does not only refer to Shakyamuni Buddha. Buddha also means truth, wisdom, understanding. Love and compassion. And resolve that with all beings I will understand the great way whereby the Buddha seed may forever thrive. And resolve that with all beings we're related to all beings. Do we realize that? To all beings, whether they live here or in East Africa, in China, Poland, El Salvador. We're related. We're related with each other. Are we? Or do we only have ideas of what we should be like or shouldn't be like? Picking and choosing our friends and our adversaries. If one realizes, not as a beautiful sentence, not as a beautiful idea or philosophy or Weltanschauung, that we're related with all human beings, then whatever we do affects all human beings. That is so. When one understands this, One realizes the enormous responsibility of one act, one word, spoken or not spoken. Resolve with all beings, related to all beings. Whether they understand me or not, that is not important. Do I understand them? That's important. Always have this condition. I'll be friends with you. I'll feel all right. I'll be with you if you understand me, my problems. And then there's problems. Because people may not understand, may be too involved, too closeted in their own problems. But do we understand that? Do I understand that? And in that understanding, there being love. And compassion, meaning understanding. Because one understands oneself, one has looked into oneself, one is looking into oneself. Into one's tremendous need for safety, something to rely upon, something to depend upon. It always turns around at some time or another. Acquisitions we may lose, houses may crumble or burn, people we rely on, depend on, and love may turn away from us or die. The faith we've had, and someone looking out afterwards may crumble because one doesn't find anyone looking out after one. Take my refuge in Buddha. Can this mean I take my refuge in no refuge? But resolve that with all beings I will understand the great way. The great way full of danger. Danger of ignorance. Of not understanding what one is doing to oneself and others. The danger of sudden death. Danger of pain or sorrow. Resolve that I will understand this. Will understand sorrow. What is the root of sorrow? What is the root of fear? What is at the bottom of the fear of dying? Will I resolve with all beings, meaning related to everyone in this? Everyone is afraid of death. Everybody is anxious, clinging, dependent, unfree, whether in the East or in the West. In the West we can say, speak what we think to an extent, certainly more than in the East, in the communist countries. And yet we're brainwashed in other ways. I will understand that. I will understand this unfreedom, the danger of that. danger of following what somebody says, whether it's a commercial, a politician, or a religious person. I will verify it. If I can. If not, I won't believe it. That's one thing that the Buddha continuously asked of his disciples to verify. Do not just follow what I say, but test it out. Don't just say yes, yes, because of the reverence you have for me. That's dangerous. Because then one deludes oneself and others. It's particularly dangerous when it's sanctioned either by a religion or sanctioned by a strong political state. Because then one dare not question. And yet, understanding the great way means questioning the great way. The great way, this is something that came from China. The Indians, as far as I've heard, did not use this term great way. They used Bodhi or Nirvana. Nirvana, the absence of all winds, or Bodhi, the wisdom. But the great way, that's Chinese, the Tao. Meaning the lawfulness, the orderliness, the harmony of the universe. And of everything in it, within it. And with each other. Harmony, order. Which, as I've read in a book, is the same as the Sanskrit root of Dharma, dhr, D-H-R. It's the same meaning as the Tao. Meaning to uphold, to support, to maintain. Order. So what is this great way? What is this great order? This great harmony? All I see within and without is disharmony and disorder. I must understand the root of that. Or else every action I do ignorantly contributes to it. Because I'm related to everyone. That I will understand the great way, understand it not intellectually, even though that may come first. Order in the intellect is very important. Not a fuzz of superstitions and beliefs, a confusion of that, but understanding clearly, at first intellectually, but not remaining with that. I must see directly what is order, what is unity, what is oneness, what is no division, no opposition. Whereby the Buddha seed may forever thrive. The wisdom seed, or the seed of love and compassion. Every seed needs good soil, appropriate soil. Some need sandy soil, others need rich soil. And some seeds in these giant forests in the West Coast, they need a forest fire to break open. brush that takes away the light has been cleared. There's room and light for new sprout. Given rain and sun and the proper soil. I take my refuge in Dharma and resolve that with all beings I will enter deeply into the sutra treasure, whereby my wisdom may grow as vast as the ocean. Dharma, we already mentioned it, the order, the orderliness, the lawfulness of this whole cosmos. Cosmos meaning order. Chaos means disorder. Taking refuge in it means, can there be order within? Not I take my disorderliness and expect some refuge and order. Which means one must understand what is going on inside. And understand it without judgment. Because then there's not clear seeing, then one sees through the eyes of the judge. And the eyes of the judge are conditioned, tinted, drilled, educated in a certain culture, tradition. Here it says, resolve that with all beings I will enter deeply into the sutra treasure. Does this mean from now on I will start reading the sutras? Because I'm resolving this once or twice a day? What are the sutras? Sutras are the spoken words of the Buddha, written down 200 or 300 years after he spoke them, which has to be kept in mind. Written down by human beings, which has to be kept in mind. So, one must verify. Not just adopt a credo. Repeat because it's written in a sutra. Buddha said, do not go upon what has been acquired by repeated hearing, nor upon tradition, nor upon a rumor, nor upon what is in a scripture, nor upon an axiom, nor upon specious reasoning, nor upon a bias toward a notion that has been pondered over. I've thought about this so long. Well, you can think and think and think in the same way, or maybe a little bit different. It's still thinking. And thinking is always old. It may have a little new constellation, a new twist. Nor upon a bias toward a notion that has been pondered over, nor upon another's seeming ability. We're so easily deluded. if we can't see clearly ourselves, so isn't it absolutely imperative that one comes to clarity so one is not deluded by oneself or others? Influenced by this barrage of influence, this fallout of influence everywhere. Ideas, notions, opinions, prejudices. Nor upon the consideration that person is our teacher. These are the words of the Buddha. When you yourselves know, beyond doubt, these things are good. Good. Goodness. Or Bankei's bright virtue, which is not the virtue of morality, of ethical codes. Goodness which has no opposite. Goodness in which there is no badness, which is not the opposite of badness. Goodness. When you yourselves know these things are good. These things are not false. These things lead to goodness and happiness, then enter on and abide in them. Not to be misled by the word abide, that one now clings to something. Clinging is not goodness, clinging is clinging. And in clinging there's fear. In goodness there's no fear. There's love because there is no fear. Entering deeply into the sutra treasure. Zen is a tradition outside the scriptures, not relying on words or letters, seeing directly into the truth, the seeing being the truth. If there's no me or no partiality, no part in there. Nothing, no one. There's a short dialogue between Bankei, the Japanese 17th century Zen master, and his senior disciple Isan. Isan asked of Bankei, "Is reading the Buddha's scriptures and patriarchs' records of use in studying the way?" And Bankei replied, "There is a time for reading the records of the patriarchs. When you read seeking the truth of the scriptures and records, you blind your own eyes. Which means looking into the words, trying to remember them, trying to interpret them, think them over deeply, ponder over them. All the activity of the brain. When you read with the insight into the truth, with insight into the truth, then they provide proof. So reading sutras is not ordinary reading at all. Just as working on a koan. You must see it directly, concretely, as it is. Not what one remembers from a past experience, but now, this instant. Then the sutra is proof. You may not need it. Or you may. Everyone has to know for themselves. Of course, there's another function, another possible function. Bankei himself, when he was an adolescent, read in the Confucian scriptures and came upon this sentence, "You must clarify bright virtue," which gripped him. What is bright virtue, and what is the clarification of bright virtue? What does it mean? So he didn't read it to remember something or to be able to mouth something, repeat it, preach it. It became a great doubt, a great inquiry, fundamental question, to which he did not know the answer. And he knew that he didn't know the answer. Everybody he asked in the beginning didn't know it either. He met up with some very honest people. Enter deeply into the sutra treasures, which is oneself. Every sutra is about you. Shouldn't say that because I don't know the sutras very well. Some of them seem to have tremendous amount of embellishment. Sort of, you can feel the joy of the writer in the rhythm of the repetitions. I take my refuge in Sangha, and in its wisdom, example, and never failing help, and resolve that nothing will impede my progress toward full enlightenment. Many people who come to Rochester or to a place where there's a center really get the feeling of a refuge. There's great friendliness and concern and care among the people for one another. One has a place to go, there's a certain lifestyle that develops, and with that comes a certain feeling of security. Example, well, question the example. The following of examples, rather to see the danger in that. You see somebody who seems so something or other, tranquil or steadfast or taut. Oh, I wish I was like that. And immediately one reconditions oneself to be that, and nothing fundamentally has been resolved. The fear of being nobody, not knowing who one is, without any kind of facade or personality. And then the clinging to one's new ways, very dangerous. Or is it just a free coming together with no dependency, no fear of loss, no fear of standing alone, no fear of discovering in others what one discovers in oneself, which is not very exemplary. Not to assume just because there's a Sangha that there's an abundance of wisdom. What is wisdom? Something that's accumulated in the minds of the people of the Sangha? In Buddhism, wisdom is always clear seeing, clear awareness, which acts without a point of view, without a vantage point, without partiality. Without a need for a refuge. Resolve that nothing will impede my progress toward full enlightenment. In spiritual practice, is there progress? In the worldly sense? Going from one stage to the next, advancing, becoming more and more spiritual, more and more enlightened. In comparison to what? To the Buddha or to the masters. Comparison, isn't that a dark shadow that follows us all over and affects our relationship with all beings? I'm making more progress than you do. You're making more than I. And there's division and despair or ambition and sorrow, from which we seek protection from Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Rather than understanding what is the cause of sorrow. This is what the Buddha left the home for, his home for. To find if sorrow could come to an end. What is its cause? What is its root? He didn't leave home to find a new refuge. He left the refuge. A life of luxury and pleasure. There's a koan, Mumonkan. It's called Daitsu Chishu Buddha. And it says, once a monk said to Master Seijo of Koyo, Daitsu Chishu Buddha, that was one of the ancient Buddhas before the Buddha, he'd read about this. Daitsu Chishu Buddha did zazen on a Bodhi seat for 10 kalpas. For 10 kalpas. And Buddha Dharma was not manifested. Nor did he attain Buddhahood. Why was it? Here I'm sitting, doing zazen. Nothing manifested, nothing attained, and he did it for 10 kalpas and can do it. What a prospect. Why was this? And Joe said, your question is splendid indeed. He was not making fun of him. He understood his despair. And the question. The monk persisted. He did practice Zazen on a body seat. Why did he not attain Buddhahood? And Joe replied, because he did not attain Buddhahood. Buddha said, I attained nothing from complete, unexcelled, consummate enlightenment. This is why it is called complete, unexcelled, consummate enlightenment. Does one get an inkling of the attainment of no attainment? And with that, the possibility of dropping the burden. All of our wants and fears and ambitions. And with that, a completely new energy and intensity that one has never been in touch with before, because it was all absorbed and consumed and eaten up by these other things. Move, not knowing. What is it? We will end here for today. The four vows.
All beings without